Hi, I'm Charlotte Smith with Grass-Fed TV, and today I'm going to make a recipe called Salisbury Steak. And the reason I chose this recipe is because it uses ground beef, and ground beef makes up 30 to 40% of your bulk beef order. So it's a great way to dress up your dinners besides just serving hamburgers and meatloaf. First of all, we start with just an onion that has been peeled, and we want to chop it pretty finely because then we're going to saute it in some lard. Now that we've got our onion chopped, we are going to saute it in either some olive oil, or I like to use lard, just about a couple tablespoons of that, and just let it melt there. Next, we will put our whole onion that's been chopped into the pan, and we're going to saute it for about 8 minutes till it's nicely caramelized. Now that our onions are nicely caramelized, we're just going to put them in a little bowl and set them aside. Next, I'm just going to chop about 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley right out of the garden. Now we're going to go ahead and make our spice mixture to put our ground beef into. Takes about, here's our 2 tablespoons of chopped parsley and about half a teaspoon, of dried thyme. And the same, about half a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. I'll just kind of guess at that. And about 1.25 teaspoons of salt. And I just use a nice sea salt, such as real salt. And then lastly, I'm going to grind some pepper in there, probably about half a teaspoon of pepper. Now that we've got all our spices in there, with this really wonderful little spice mixture, I'm going to remove my wedding ring and get ready to work this up by hand. So here's our 1 pound of ground beef. Now when you buy beef bulk, you typically have a choice of your ground beef being packaged into 2 pounds, 1.5 pounds, or for a little more money, 1 pound packages. I always get the 1 pound packages. It's worth the extra few cents to me, since most of the recipes I use call for a pound or at least hamburger in 1 pound increments. So it works out really well. Put that aside, and then the best way is to just dig in with your hands and start mixing this together. As you can see now, our ground beef mixture is really mixed up with the spices really well. And at this point, I need 4 patties, so I'm just gonna divide this into about 4 equal parts. Right like there, that one's a little big. And then I'm going to sprinkle this 1/4 cup of flour on a dinner plate here. And now I'm going to form my patties, and we're going to make them in the traditional oval-shaped patty that is used with Salisbury steak. So instead of a round hamburger, nice oval shape here. And I use my thumbs along the edges to stack up the edges a little bit so that they brown evenly and don't burn to a crisp right on the edge. So there we have one nice little patty, oval shape. And now we're just finishing up our last patty here. And I'll put them all on the plate, and I'm going to turn them over here so they all have a nice, very light sprinkling of of flour on them. Now we have about 1.5 tablespoons of butter to put in our pan. Ours happens to be grass-fed butter from our cow out in the backyard, which if you're lucky enough to have, adds a lot of flavor. Otherwise, just butter from the store will do. Now that our butter is nicely foaming, I'm just going to shake off the excess flour here and put our patties in the pan. And I'll be cooking them 3.5 to 4 minutes per side for a medium rare patty, and about a couple minutes longer for medium patties. All right, it's been about 3.5 minutes. So I will be turning these over because we like ours medium rare. And look at that nice golden brown color on this side. And again, we'll just, I'm going to set the timer for 4 minutes on this side. Now that our patties are done, I'm just going to remove them onto a platter right here. And I'm going to cover the platter with a little foil warm while we make our onion sauce to go over the top. Now that we've removed our patties, whoops, we're going to make our onion cream sauce for the top. And again, if you have a cow in the backyard, this is some fresh raw cream, which is just amazing. Or if you have access to raw cream, it makes for a beautiful sauce. Calls for about 1.5 cups of cream. Otherwise, use some half and half from the store. Add it back to your pan. Going to make sure I scrape up the bits from our meat that are on the bottom. And then I'm going to add our caramelized onions back in. And we are just going to let this sim for about 8 to 10 minutes until it nicely coats our spoon. All right, now our cream sauce is ready, and I'm going to add the last half teaspoon salt in our recipe to this and stir it in nicely. And I'm just going to take one of our patties, take this nice perfectly shaped little guy, and spoon some of our onion cream sauce over the top. Oh my gosh, it looks great and it smells wonderful. I'm going to put 2 scoops because I know how good it is. And now the fun part, I get to try it. Oh, yum. You can see the herbs all through the meat. It's delicious. I want to make sure I get lots of sauce on there too. This is fabulous. Now the discussion continues, where I would love to hear from you over in the comments section on csgrassfed.com. So scroll down below the video and tell me, are you going to try this recipe? Or if you already did, how did it turn out and how did your family love it? If so, be sure to subscribe on our website by leaving your name and address in the box provided, and also forward this video to your friends who cook. I'm sure they could use some great new creative recipes for ground beef too. Thank you once again so much for joining me here today, and join us again in about a month when we are going to make the most delicious pot roast recipe you've ever had.